Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming to The Art of a Peaceful Mind. I'm Kim Root, your host, and please join me in welcoming today GP Walsh, who is an expert in EFT and a meditation master. So hi, GP. How are you today?
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for having me here on The Art of a Peaceful Mind.
Thanks for being here. It's great to have you. So what, just first off, what was it that motivated you to get into helping people with meditation or helping yourself with meditation?
It was a natural progression, right? After, I was fortunate enough to have a very significant spiritual experience at a time in my life when at the ripe old age of 19, I thought it was over.
Oh, no.
And in fact, would have welcomed it. It was just, it was not a happy childhood and the like. But without going into any of the details, something just kind of intervened and just kind of created inside of me an unquenchable desire to know what was true. And also not just know what's true, but how to set myself and other people free. Once you see that what binds us is our own beliefs and our emotional states and our conditioning, the question then arises, well, how do we become free of it? Since it's not our natural state, peace is our natural state. Right. And so I explored everything, including various types of meditation practice, various kinds of practices and traditions. Went into psychology at the time when it was getting out of analysis and into energy work and engaging the body more, and a variety of spiritual practices and philosophies that just kind of rounded the whole thing out and helped me get an understanding of how our lives get so messed up, and to the point where we don't know. It's like we're stuck in the mud. It's a tar baby. We want to get out and we can't. It's not as complex as people think, but it took me a long time to come to understand it, and so I help other people because I don't want to take as long for them.
Great. Good. So then, can you share what you found or some of the tips? I know you talk about the system you call inner reconciliation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I found was, first, at 19 years old, I had a very deep and profound vision where I saw crystal clear that the real nature of every individual was absolutely pure and innocent. I refer to it as the original innocence. Mm. But simultaneously, in the act of going through life, of getting through childhood into adulthood, that natural innocence gets curbed, it gets bent out of shape. And the human nervous system is brilliant in that it is capable of creating what we call conditioning, are basically defensive postures by your nervous system that have been set up to keep you safe. And anytime your natural state of things is being challenged or diminished, it's a feeling of not being safe. So as a little child, little kids, I've got the opportunity of hanging out with my 2-year-old granddaughter a lot, and to watch how naturally and easily they just flow between things, and how they don't get stuck anywhere, and how life is just pure curiosity reaching out for that next shiny object. Well, when our natural behavior runs into the rules of the tribe, it creates a dissonance within the nervous system. It's not expecting that. It doesn't know what to do with it. And it is actually quite traumatic. And as a result, a very natural behavior of yours, a completely unpretentious, innocent behavior, because it's getting back, pain, maybe even abuse from the environment, becomes dangerous. So your own true nature becomes dangerous. The nervous system, being as smart as it does, well, that can't come out. Funk, it buries it down somewhere in your body, presents a different behavior that gets you what you need, love and shelter and attention and food and all of that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, sometimes the very best parts of us now become inaccessible. Now, the important thing to see about that is this is the way the system actually works. It's not that you're broken. It's not that you're defective in some way. It's just that you don't have access to the wholeness of you, because at one point it was dangerous to have access to the whole of you. So seeing that split between the original innocence of an individual and the way the nervous system creates conditioning to keep you safe made it crystal clear to me how to liberate people from that. And also the thing that I keep saying over and over again, you're not broken. This isn't a mistake. There's nothing wrong with you. You simply don't have access to all of you because you've mistaken the conditioning of the nervous system for who you are, and they're not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So I notice a lot of times people, sometimes people know that there's something that they have this beautiful part and innocent and loving part inside themselves, but they don't know how to access it. And some people have gotten to the point where they don't even trust anymore that it even exists.
Correct. Yeah.
How? How do we find it again? How do people,
well,
here's
the really, really good news.
That's good news.
The good news is that even though it has been buried, it has not been destroyed. And it's actually quite easy to access because it's your nature.
Right. All that other stuff isn't us, and that is. Right?
The other thing isn't you. You've simply mistaken it for you. It's simply your nervous system in a defensive posture, trying to keep you safe. Yeah. Once you understand that, your whole relationship with even all the conditioned patterns changes. And instead of doing, what I call the self-help treadmill, one process after another to try to silence those voices or get rid of those feelings, instead you turn towards them. You actually begin to walk towards your own inner distress. And what that does is create an atmosphere within the entire nervous system of safety. And it's only the atmosphere of safety that can remove provides the environment in which the nervous system itself can determine that it's safe enough to drop out of the defensive posture. So that's how you do it. And it's actually really, 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 really simple. Mind-numbingly simple. So simple that I used to think I was really smart. And then realized for decades I kept walking right by this and going, oh, brother.
Yeah. So I guess in my experience, when there's a place where it becomes safe, but as you're going toward that, what we label anyway as the uncomfortable feeling, as you go a little deeper, it gets, in my experience anyway, more uncomfortable till it's like your whole body is shaking or tingling. So
yes, it can.
How do you keep yourself in that in order to go into that next?
Well, first off, you have to realize that that's how it works. Mm-hmm. Right. Recognize that what you're actually experiencing. Remember, there was a traumatic moment.
Right.
And in order to keep you safe, the natural parts of you had to be stuck. I often call them angels in the basement. They got relegated to the basement. The door is closed. For them to come out actually means danger. So the nervous system is brilliant. And as you begin to turn towards it, it's going to go, whoa, no, look, danger. It's going to make you feel fear. It's going to make all sorts of things. It's going to squirrel. It's going to, throw rocks in the bush. Anything to keep you from getting there because it regards it as dangerous. Yeah. You have to become safe for your nervous system. And of course, if all we're doing is trying to fix ourselves or improve ourselves or make ourselves better or get rid of bad habits, all you're doing is you're doing the same thing to yourself that your parents did that caused the problem in the first place. There's no love in that. I've got to get better before I can have the life that the life that I want. But if instead you literally turn towards it and every uncomfortable feeling, you simply let it be there, you have become safe. When you go inward in a meditation or in a reconciliation or any of the techniques that I use. When you turn inward with no agenda, not to fix, but to simply discover, you become unthreatening. When you're not threatening, it just kind of says, oh, okay, let's talk, let's dance, and it will. That's how you do it. But at first, you're absolutely right. It's going to throw up every smokescreen it can, but it's not because it's trying to make your life miserable. It's literally trying to protect you.
Right.
And prior to that, you have been just as dangerous as everything else.
Right. Because you're attacking along with everything else.
Yeah, every time you say I'm broken, I got to fix myself, you've just reinforced the very thing you want to be free from.
Mm-hmm.
That's why most self-help techniques don't work, or at least work for a minute or two, and then your nervous system figures out what you're doing and it creates a new defense, and you're right back where you started from. I say it a million times, the only thing that's ever healed anything is unconditional love. And unconditional love is simply being with what you're feeling exactly as you're feeling it without an attempt to change it. And I mean, isn't that what we all want?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that the only thing we've ever wanted, is just be accepted for what we are?
Exactly. From other people and from ourselves especially, right?
Absolutely. That's all we want.
Yeah.
So why don't we give it to ourselves?
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, it's so simple, right?
It is mind-numbingly simple.
Yeah. Yeah, but we do need often, most of the time, to get there, we need some encouragement from someone else like you, or some space, some safe space to go, because this world is so, like, everywhere you turn around, whether it's your family or listening to the radio or looking at your cell phone, we're hit by a barrage of bad news or drama or something. So
yes, and let's not fool ourselves. The culture at large has a great deal invested in keeping you afraid.
Yeah.
Peaceful people don't buy a lot of stuff. They buy nothing they don't need.
Mm-hmm.
They're content. They can't be manipulated. They can't be easily deceived.
Mm-hmm.
Peaceful, happy people are a completely different caliber of individuals. And so, you if you've got a country full of peaceful people, you're not making war, period. You found other ways to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this show. If we make that for everybody, then if we make it accessible to everybody, then we can have what we want.
That's correct.
Peaceful world. We
absolutely
have everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have everything we need to do it, except the understanding that allows us to move in that direction, and the consensus of understanding of what really primary values are. And it's coming now. It's happening.
Yeah, it is.
Shows like this are popping up all over the place. Consciousness is exploding. I mean, this is humanity's destiny, as far as I'm concerned. And although it looks really bleak when you look out in the media, the real revolution, the pockets of light, are everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's just not being televised.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the light that I can see in the current situation, it is perpetuating what we're doing now.
Yes.
Because it's pushing us up against a place where we need to do something. And so
as my teacher Muji would like to say, we've run out of moves.
So then what's on the other side? Once you get to that place, what can people, because sometimes when I talk to people about this, they say, well, what if I don't like who I am? Or what if I don't like what I find inside? I say, that you will, but is there something else?
Well, that's it. And that's one of the clever arguments the mind uses to keep you from doing this.
Yeah.
It's very clever. Yeah. It's very clever. As Rumi said, sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. It is extremely clever to think, well, if I find out who I really am, I'm not going to like who I am. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter how many times you tell somebody, yes, you will.
Yeah.
right? Until you actually go through and find out for yourself. So it's not going to have any meaning. So what I love to do is is I say, well, you know what? Do you have the courage to find out? I mean, it's what you are, right? Let's find out. Yeah, maybe you won't, which means, okay, go back to doing it the way you were, you know,
With all the pain.
you know, enlightenment, your money for enlightenment fully refunded if you're unsatisfied with the results. If you don't like peace and happiness, if it's too much for you, all right, here, have your delusion back. Fine. It's kind of people can begin to see that the the human nervous system, the energy system, is enormously subtle and clever,
Mm.
and it is dedicated to keeping you from discovering this material. And so it's using every trick in the book. What I do when I'm working with people, either individually or as a group, is to simply bring them into that place that I call the yoga of allowing, where you're just present and notice how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
It never feels bad.
Yeah.
Even when it's uncomfortable, there's a quiet there, because even being in the presence of the discomfort, if you're really present there in your body, your mind goes quiet. That's really the art of a peaceful mind. It's when the mind goes quiet because your attention is completely absorbed in the present moment. Even if the present moment sucks, you're here, you're present. And you find that the body is always in this present moment.
Right.
The mind is always in the past or the future.
Right.
It is never in the present moment. So if
Well,
you put your attention in the body, your mind has no choice but to go quiet. It
right.
simply stops doing anything.
Mhm. Yeah. It just recognizes it's just here. Right.
Yeah, it's just here. Now, at first, the mind will be very active and say, yeah, well, look, I mean, throwing rocks in the bushes, anything to get you distracted. But if you recognize that that's what it is, you go, I just tell people, you say, thank you. I don't need you right now. And just put your attention back onto this moment and what's being felt in this moment.
Mhm.
And little by little, the story about this moment begins to dissolve. Our resistance to it begins to dissolve. And that's when you begin to discover a peace that doesn't just go away in a minute.
Mhm. Yeah. I think sometimes people think that that sounds like it might be boring, but it's so much not that. It's
Again, that's another thing that people, another really ludicrous teaching out there, that being peaceful would being bored, because we just, again, the mind, the habits of the mind in protecting itself will say, well, yeah, well, what are you going to do then? I once saw it was a Gary Larson cartoon, and it was the sky and some guy and with his wings, sitting on the cloud,
Uh-huh.
obviously recently dead, a recent, move into heaven. He's sitting there going, gee, I wish I brought a magazine or something. The thing is that the life as you're living it, the experience of life, the constant flow of life and sensation and thought and feeling, that doesn't stop. We think peace means that stops. No, it means that we find peace inside and we let life flow through us.
Yeah.
And in fact, it gets bigger, it gets amplified, it gets more intense and beautiful. The feelings become even better. It becomes the tantra of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I remember one time, a long time ago, I was going through this experience where I felt jealous of something, of an old boyfriend, and a friend of mine, and I was going crazy, and because really I had no right to feel jealous because things were over, but I but a friend of mine had me sit down. He said, just close your eyes, and I closed my eyes, and I just felt it, like what you're talking about. I'm remembering that, and I opened my eyes and I was laughing, and I said, wow, this is actually kind of fun. Feels like I'm on a roller coaster, It's just I was following all the thinking.
Yes. When you actually step out of the thinking and just in the feeling, you find there is no suffering.
Yeah.
That suffering is always projected on the experience you're having through by the mind resisting what's happening, saying this shouldn't be happening, which is silly, right? We say this shouldn't be happening. I know it should be happening, and I know it should be happening because it's happening.
Right. So what do you what is it that you offer to people? What do you do?
What I offer people is an understanding of why things work the way they do, how things work, how your nervous system works, how conditioning happens, how you get stuck in these programmed responses, and at the same time showing you that they are not you, giving you a deeper sense of who you actually are, not as a belief system. I don't practice or preach any kind of religion or spiritual tradition in and of itself, but through your own direct experience. Everybody can feel. And with a little bit of help and a little bit of guidance, you can let yourself feel the things that you thought you couldn't let yourself feel. And you begin to see that the mind's story, the story you've bought, you purchased it, hook, line, and sinker, about what's happening, isn't what's happening.
Uh-huh.
And that begins to open up a gap. And when that gap opens up, you begin to have the freedom of choice. And you really begin to see life through very, very different eyes. And at that point, all of the repressed material, the traumas, the pains can come up and be healed. Mm-hmm. Because you're not fighting with them anymore. You're not trying to push them down. You've created a space. And it only gets bigger and more stuff comes up. And as a result, the various traumas and fears that we had, that's what's held us in check. Is those are healed, that energy that has been defending us against that very same energy switches sides. All of a sudden it goes from defending you into the power of self-expression. And that's what we want. Uh-huh. That's the same energy that we think is the problem is the same energy that basically delivers you the various kinds of manifestations and experiences that you want to have. It's the same energy. Mm-hmm. It's just been I use the example of when you get a cold or the flu or something, your body is all in, right? Mm-hmm. All energy is redirected to defending yourself against the little intruders, right? Mm-hmm. You get restless, you get hot, you can't do much, you can't think, there's no creative energy. But then once the intruder has been warded off, all that energy begins to come back. Well, the same thing is true on a much more energetic level. When we're in a defensive posture, it's sucking off our life energy to just keep us alive. The more of that repressed material comes up and is set free, the more energy is then freed up for doing the big things, the big ideas, the big ambitions and aspirations that we all have. So understanding how that works and having a direct experience of it through meditation is really what I do, right? Yeah. So that when somebody gets to that place, well, what's happening? This isn't supposed to be happening. I go, yes, it is. I've had teachers that have said, yep, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. You kidding? It feels terrible. I can't be what it is. Yes, that's exactly what it is. No problem. I'm here. Believe me, if you go off the rails, I'll tell you. Mm-hmm. And little by little, confidence begins to get to build up until now. I've got several dozen people now who have been trained to facilitate others themselves and do this and do this for other people. So it really is primarily my job is to shift the relationship you have with yourself from one that's in conflict with yourself to one that is embracing yourself. Yeah,
that's great. So do you work with individuals or always, or do you work with groups of people?
Mostly with groups. I do some individual work, but I just don't really have the space for doing that much of it, which is why I'm teaching others to do it. Uh-huh. So like twice a year, I do a facilitator class. We just finished one. I'll be doing another one, I think probably in February. Uh-huh. So so I can focus my attention on training people to do it and to working with larger groups, because it works just as well with large groups as it does with individual. It's just, sometimes people need some individual attention, and I almost never get people who like, show up every week. I mean, that doesn't happen. That model of psychoanalysis, you don't need it. One session and you could be good for 6 months.
Yeah, right. Because you make a breakthrough and then,
then you integrate it, right? And then you take this information and you process it, and you begin to look at your own feelings, and you begin to see them differently, and you become the laboratory, right? I mean, you're not just sitting on a cushion anymore. Life is a meditation. Every moment is revealing the truth of who you actually are. So it isn't a practice, it's life.
Yeah. So do you have, I think you have something that you're offering people who are watching today, right? Or
I do.
What is it?
It just so happens I do.
Please tell us about it.
Sure. Needless to say, I have a lot of meditations. I've been practicing meditation of 40 years and teaching it for 25 or of it toward 30. And so I have a bunch of recorded guided meditations that I have various, and I have one collection. I decided to take a meditation out of this collection I call The Integrated Life. And the first meditation is called Reclaiming Your Center. And so it's a nice guided meditation with some nice music, well produced, that they can get absolutely free. Just go to gpwalsh.com/free gift. I'm pretty sure you'll have a link.
We'll have a link for it here.
For it somewhere. And you can get it. You'll get access to the classroom, and you'll get access to that meditation, and you can listen to it online, or you can download it and put it on your MP3 player and take it to the gym if you like. So
that's great. Yeah.
It's about finding that space inside. Reclaiming your center is the place from which you're walking back into yourself. Right? I mean, that's really what's happening. You're clearing away everything that isn't you, and what you find what's left is actually you. And so that's your center, that's your heart, that's your essence. That's the connection to God, if you want to put it that way, or the connection to source energy. I mean, that's the spot. That's the sweet spot right there. And you find in that spot, you are not only deeply sensitive and deeply vital and deeply engaged in life, you're also deeply wise and powerful. Because when you're in your center, when you're in that position, nothing can throw you off. And as the conditioning diminishes, your access to your natural inner resources increases. And so suddenly you find yourself situations that would totally freak you out. You're just like, yeah, whatever, no big deal. It's just right past you. Not through any special acquisition of something, but simply discovering your real nature, what you actually are. You are that peace. Peace is not a commodity you acquire. It's the actual atmosphere or perfume of your being.
Right. We just have to come back to it.
Yes.
Come back to ourselves.
Come back to yourself. And that's why it's such good news. It's not like you're becoming something. You're losing everything you're not, and finding that what you actually are is inconceivably beautiful.
Yeah. I think other people see it in us before we see it for ourselves.
Yes, indeed. And that's part of the job of the teacher and the coach, is to see that until you can see it for yourself, and really let it sink in that, wow, this is true.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your beautiful message and your gift. And is there anything else in the last minute or two we have here that you want to finish with?
Oh, yeah. Yes. I just really want to remind people, the heart of what happened to me when I was 19, when suddenly it was made crystal clear to me, and I was on the verge of, just ending it.
Mm.
I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated everything I had done. I was a mess.
Mm.
And to suddenly be handed this gift of actually seeing that pure, original, innocent, untouched self. I've since simply told everybody, you're not broken.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what they say, no matter what it feels like, no matter what you tell yourself, you're not broken. Everything is functioning exactly the way it's supposed to. You have simply mistaken what is nothing but conditioned responses in the nervous system for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
They are limited, they're constricted because they've simply been adaptive. They just adapted to the environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like water. You pour water into any container, it takes the shape of the container, but that's not the essential nature of water. Think of the conditioning of your life that you experienced as the container, and you're the water.
Right.
All you have to do is take yourself out of the container. Yes.
Free flowing, right?
Free flowing, easy, effortless, natural, flowing ultimately and inevitably to the ocean, which is into the oneness with all beings.
Yeah. Let's do it. Be
Let's do
there. Do it for the world.
Do it now.
I guess the hand's wrong.
That's right.
All right. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for being here with us today. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time. Or great evening or day or whatever it is. We'll see you next time. All right. Thanks, GP.
Thank
Bye.
you.